Another question we got, and this is one of the best Twitter names out there, @Jigmatic. Who will have a better season of the big three? He's referring to, of course, Miami, Florida, and Florida State. So in the Sunshine State, who has the best 2022? Now I want to make it very clear. The answer to this question may be, how do I say this? In 2022, Miami, Florida, and Florida State, whoever has the best season in 2022, it may not look the same in 4 years. So the answer to 2022 does not necessarily mean the same thing for 2025. Now, the reason why that's important to say, you have two of these three schools that have a first-year head coach in Florida and in Miami. And Florida State, Mike Norvell, in my humble opinion, needs to win now. He needs to show something. He needs to show some ROI to that administration. So we're going to go down the list here, talk about each program, and give you my answer at the end of this segment as to who will have the best 2022. So for Miami, new coach Mario Cristobal, like we talked about, you have a borderline elite quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke. So right off the bat, you have two of the most critical factors in success in the game of football, college or pro, checked. Because I believe in Mario Cristobal. If you don't, it's a whole other conversation, but I do. I think he's got them headed the right direction. I think you take on his persona of don't flinch and no nonsense and high intensity and urgency, just all the things that equate to a successful program. I think Mario Cristobal is made of those ingredients. So my question marks is the defense really revamped? Because a season ago, they allowed around 30 points a game. It is really hard, no matter how good your quarterback is, it is really hard to be successful week in and week out if you're allowing 30 points a game. And the schedule is not kind to Miami. They go to A&M, they go to Clemson. Right off the bat, two games that are going to be tough to play in if you're allowing 30 points a game. And that's me saying I believe in Tyler Van Dyke. In addition to that, your wide receiver one, Keyshawn Smith, he's a guy that you are asking to step up, and you're replacing a Charleston Rambo. So somebody, if it's not him, it's got to be somebody else on this roster that adds an element of taking the top off the defense. Running back room is deep, but can they hold up enough of the physicality on the defensive side, and can they have explosiveness on the offensive side to get to where they want to go? For Florida Gators down there in Gainesville, Mr. Scared Money Don't Make No Money, Billy Napier. He is coming into a program where he is, similar to Miami and Mario Cristobal, he is doing a 180 in terms of the way they approach things. He is recruiting really hard, and a lot of this hinges for Florida, Miami as well, I guess you could say, but for Florida, they have a less proven commodity in Anthony Richardson. He needs to be everything that he is advertised to be for Florida, because there's a lot of excitement around his physical tools, and the reports out of fall camp and spring have been glowing. He is 100% their guy, adds so much on the ground, has a really strong arm. Reports are he's been dialed in. But Florida's entire season hinges on what he can do for them. They're going to ask a lot of him. It's no secret. Billy Napier's made it clear the offense will go as Anthony Richardson goes. And in year one, he needs to ball out for them to be successful and for them to be the answer to this question. I'm confident in the personnel that they have on defense, but there needs to be a sense of urgency with stopping the run, because they're great rushing the passer, but you got Jervon Dexter in the middle. Outside of that, I don't know who's going to stop the run for you. They didn't do a great job of it last year. Over 150 yards a game, I believe it was. They weren't great stopping the run. In the SEC, in the game of football in general, but especially in the SEC, you have to play the trenches well. You have to be a force in the trenches. Because guess what? Georgia's in your conference. Alabama's in your conference. Arkansas's in your conference. People throughout the SEC are going to lean on you. If you're Florida or someone else, you're going to get leaned on up front if you can't take care of business in the middle. So the depth there concerns me a little bit, but otherwise the personnel is really solid. Brenton Cox, Ventrell Miller. There's a lot of guys they're excited about. Devin Moore on the outside is a guy that we have on our preseason true freshman All-American team. So the personnel is there, but how much do you get on that side? Going back to the offense, similar to Miami, do you have a wide receiver one that's going to step up and be a threat for you? They got a lot of guys that they feel good about in-house, but a lot of guys that are unproven. Now, Ricky Pearsall has earned the number 1 jersey. He was a transfer from Arizona State, now finding himself at Florida. And he is a guy that they have raved about in the short time he's been in Gainesville. So again, if AR can be the guy, if AR can get him the football, if AR can be the playmaker they're expecting him to be, Florida's got a chance to be really, really good. Because they got enough on defense, especially if they can plug up that middle a little better. They got enough on defense to where, okay, this offense can roll. Depth of the running back spot as well with Montrell Johnson, a transfer from Louisiana they're excited about. They're probably 3 or 4 deep in that room. They can roll if they get what they need from Anthony Richardson. So that's Florida. Now, Florida State, I'm going to spend a little bit less time on, and that's not to knock the Noles. They're just a different situation. To me, it comes down to personnel. Because Mike Norvell, it's been very, very clear he needs to win this year. 5-7 last year in 2021. It's not going to cut it. They need to see some ROI. Now, he hasn't had a perfect set of circumstances. Jordan Travis is the guy that they're excited about at quarterback. That's been good reports for him. What do you have up front on the offensive line? Is the way that you retooled your program via the transfer portal, is that effective? Do you have the personnel to win 7 or 8 games? That's what it comes down to for me. Paired with that is the Jordan Travis concerns, because 15 touchdowns, 6 interceptions a year ago. I know he wasn't getting all the snaps last year with Mackenzie Milton getting some time. Is Jordan Travis the answer at quarterback? I pause for dramatic effect to allow you the chance to answer. Is he your answer at quarterback to win you 7 or 8 games? I still have my reservations. We're going to see. A guy that I am excited about out of Florida State, Micah Pittman, transfer from Oregon. They've been pleased with him and his development in fall camp. A guy that started off a little bit slower, and Mike Norvell said he had some practices early on that weren't up to his standards. Speaking to Micah Pittman, has a high standard for himself, but I think he's going to be a guy that is someone who infuses some excitement and some explosive playability into that offense. So we'll see what happens, but ultimately I think for Florida State, the personnel is not yet there to where I think they're going to be a force in the Sunshine State. I root for Mike Norvell. I think he's a great coach, a great offensive mind. We saw what he did at Memphis, but I don't know that you have what you need at quarterback. Even if they're excited about what they have with him at quarterback from fall camp reports, I still have my reservations. I hope I'm wrong, but we're going to see. So then this becomes a matter of, okay, do you like Miami or do you like Florida for 2022? This is not a cop-out, but I have picked both of these programs to finish 9-3. And to some extent, you're saying, okay, you're picking games in August that are going to happen past mid-October. We're all guessing at that point, right? Like, there's no real logic that can be applied to a game that's going to happen November, second week of November, third week of November. Like, we're all sort of guessing at that point, right? But the way that this could shake out, the way that this could ultimately evolve is, I think both programs can win 9 games. I'll just say it. A lot of it, though, does hinge on AR for Florida, whereas I think they have more that I'm certain about at Miami on the offensive side of the ball at the very least. Because Anthony Richardson, to be fair, we've seen a smaller sample size from him. But all that's to say, okay, I got both programs going 9-3, which would be great. I think you would take that from both sides. I mean, I think Miami would be happy with 9-3. I think Florida would be happy with 9-3. The thing that I want to stress is 9-3 in the ACC probably gets you more than it does in the SEC. Because for Florida to win the East, you got to probably finish with 1 loss, assuming that Georgia kind of runs the table. So that's tough. However, 9-3 for Miami, I think if you do lose that game to A&M, if you do lose to Clemson, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but if you do lose to Clemson, you probably still find yourself in that ACC title game. So by nature of accolades, you say, okay, well, then Miami had the better season because they found themselves in the title game. Well, Florida had the same number of wins and losses as Miami, and they just happened to play in the toughest conference in the entire country. So if you're making me answer this question by nature of accomplishment, I would say Miami for getting to their conference title game, but for Florida to go 9-3 in the SEC in year 1 under Billy Napier and Anthony Richardson's really first year as the starting quarterback, I think that's a great sign for both programs. again, we pull for Florida State here. I hope Mike Norvell figures it out. I would absolutely love for all three of these programs to be firing on all cylinders and for them to just absolutely gladiator each other when it comes to recruiting and when it comes to the entire college football landscape. I think that's great for the sport. Not saying it's bad for the sport when they're not, but I think it's better when you have all three of these programs on their game. All that's to say, by nature of accolades, we'll say Miami has the best 2022. But a lot of excitement in Florida. A lot of excitement around Billy Napier. Mr. Scare Money Don't Make No Money. That's got to be one of the coolest quotes. Not just in college football, but just ever. Like, that is a big baller brand. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.